Starting us off with number 10 is the collection of weird objects. The Museum of Curiosity opened a gallery in 2012 that was what I can only describe as the weirdest art collection I've ever seen in my life. The first of this collection is an eyeball tray. Literally, I believe it's a glass eyeball tray. I hope it's glass. It definitely isn't real, otherwise they would have decayed by now, I feel. The next is the Marauding Horde by Tessa Farmer, and it's the skeletons of 2 flies on a bigger flying insect which is just standing on a bird claw skeleton of some kind. Yeah, I don't know what to say either. I didn't know what to say when I saw it, I don't know what to say now. Tessa has many other pieces in the gallery that are all equally horrific. The collection also features a bat skeleton, a box of teeth, it's just a lot. But the scariest pieces are for sure the insect battle ones. You guys have to Google Tessa Farmer's work. You'll be equally in awe and equally disgusted. How do you even prop up skeletons of ants that way? I don't even know. They're just tiny. Coming in at number 9 are the skulls. Josef Hertel was an Austrian anatomist who taught lessons and showed preparations of animals' nervous systems, their kidneys, their skeletons, and most importantly, their skulls. Now, he grew a huge fascination with the meaning behind skulls when his brother gave him the skull attributed to Mozart. And I'm not weird or anything, but I'd also want to see Mozart's skull. This is just me. He's a genius, I'd want to see it. Josef started collecting skulls and grew a collection of about 139, and he did it to disprove the teachings of phrenologists who claimed cranial features could be used as evidence of intelligence and personality, and that skulls differed based on what race you were. I don't know what to say to that. Now Josef was like, that sounds like a whole load of bull, so he collected a bunch of Caucasian skulls from Europe to show they're all different despite them all being the same race. The collection is located in the Museum in Philadelphia, and each skull is mounted on a stand with that person's age, cause of death, etc. And honestly, it's freaky, I'm not gonna lie. Just imagine 100+ skulls all lined up next to each other. It looks like a trophy case for a serial killer. One that I'm not interested in, quite frankly. At number 8 we have Cupboard 55. Now unless you're an avid museum goer like I am, you may not know about the hidden cabinets. The hidden secret sex cabinets, that is. These cabinets are usually tucked away behind curtains, shutters, etc., and are only open for a certain group of people. They contain risque art that apparently no one wanted seen even now. An example of this is Cupboard 55, located in the Secretariat of the British Museum in London. The Cabinet of Obscene Objects was created in 1865 and houses everything that was frankly way too saucy for the general public. Dr. Alfred Witt presented the collection to the museum as what he called the symbols of the early worship of mankind, which is just a really fancy way of saying he collected a lot of dicks. He collected every representation of the phallus in every place he traveled. I'm talking Egyptian dicks, Roman dicks, medieval dicks, dicks with eyes, with wings, wax dicks, lamps that are dicks. You get the picture. A lot of dicks. Now he didn't do this to create the setting for your next erotic fiction. He did it to show how different cultures around the world viewed sex and what their attitude towards it was. Okay, there's even a giant stone phallus wrapped in flannel that people thought was a pillow used by an ascetic monk, when evidently it wasn't. Now this one isn't scary per se, I just thought it was a weird one, so I was like, let's pop it on there. Filling our number 7 slot is the Medicine Man. Now the Medicine Man exhibit is part of the Wellcome Collection, which is essentially a free museum and library located in London. The purpose of the collection was to show how people viewed things like health, birth, sex, and death over the centuries, and the pieces are interesting to say the least. There's a waxwork of Queen Elizabeth I's face, and half of it is her face, and the other is a decaying skull being eaten by insects, and that kind of just reminds me of the stuff I'd have to draw when I did art during like year 10 and 11, just decaying shit and flowers. Another display is a bunch of terracotta replicas of feet and hands and ears and various other body parts that Romans used to leave in temples and shrines hoping for better health. But the creepiest one for sure for me is Black Madonna, which is a 12th century statue of the Virgin of Guadalupe. The painting is gorgeous, I have to say, but her face is just black, like pitch black. You can barely see the outline of any facial features, which initially made me think it was just like a faceless woman wearing a dress. I mean, she has no eyes either. If I could see her eyes, I'd be like, oh, okay, all well and good, but where they at though? Now at number 6 are Unseen Forces. Now this is one of the collections at the Museum of Bad Art, and it's filled with art from a bunch of different artists. One called Vanishing Woman was painted by Hannah Hamilton, and it's creepy as hell. She painted an apparition of a woman in a field, and the woman is like neon grey yellow and half see-through and seems to be bleeding from her eyes. It's actually really well done. I feel like it's in the wrong museum. It's not bad art at all. Another really weird one is Crew Cut Dreams by Leonardo. aficionado. The picture is basically a man stuck amongst like seals and snakes and other animals, but none of them look like animals. They're literally just long rectangular shapes enveloping the man, and the man himself has like the creepiest smile on his face that I've ever seen. Another one is called The Scientist, and it's by an anonymous person, and the piece is literally a skeleton sad over his lab experiment that went horribly wrong. It's mixed media, so that means paint, marker, latex gloves, oh, and of course bodily fluids. Safe to say this was a mixed bag. Coming in at number 5 are the funeral carriages. Located in Barcelona, I don't know who wanted to have a funeral carriage collection. Like, no, I mean I do since I did the research. His name is Cristobal Tora. But still, I don't know who'd actually want a collection about that. He apparently wanted all funeral activity in a single building, and with technical developments and the creation of motor cars, there were a bunch of funeral carriages that just were now useless, so he popped them all in this collection. It features 13 carriages, 6 coaches, 4 motor vehicles, and other just decorative death pieces, I guess. He created it to show future generations how our ancestors used to transport the deceased, because I'm sure we're all very curious about that. Like, I'm curious about the past, don't get me wrong, like I want to know how cavemen really lived and communicated, how people survived after those head drilling procedures, not how dead bodies were taken to the cemetery. Sorry, not sorry. Honestly, all the carriages are so majestically gothic, like they're fancier than the transport I take, and I'm alive. At number 4 are the fetuses. Frederick Rausk was a professor of botany and anatomy, and his anatomic collection at Kunstkamera is morbid. It makes your stomach turn a bit, if I'm honest, and it really makes me wonder what was going through his head when he made it. The exhibit holds more than 800 specimens, some of which include an injected head of a child with a dissected cranium, and yes, you can very clearly see where its neck bone would have attached. There's a cut humerus of a newborn, gotta have a bit of that, a fragment of a child's tongue and mouth floor, injected fetuses of all kinds, conjoined ones, ones that have been injected with things in the womb, injected stillborns, injected mutated fetuses. I'm pretty sure the collection has an injected fetus of every month leading up to birth. Like, I feel like I'm speechless. I don't know what else I can say about this. Filling our number 3 slot is the hair. The Avanos Hair Museum in Cappadocia, Turkey literally made me gag, I kid you not. You know that cringy feeling when you're showering and one of your hairs is on your body and you're like trying to get it off but it's like stuck to your fingers? That's exactly the cringy feeling this museum gave me. It's actually located in a cave, and calling it museum is a bit of a stretch because it's really just notes from all the female visitors who have come there, with a huge lock of their hair attached to the note. Apparently the story behind the museum is that a potter was saying bye to his friend way back when he asked her for something to remember her by. As you could have probably guessed, she cut off a piece of her hair and the potter put it up in his shop, and each woman who came in asked about the hair as anyone would. And after hearing the story, they too would leave a bit of their hair. The museum started in 1979, and at this point it has like 16,000 locks of hair. Honestly, if I had heard this story from the potter, I'd be like, oh, heartwarming, great story, what a nice friend, and then leave. I wouldn't be like, oh no, hold on a second. No. Now at number 2 are Bad Dreams. Displayed at Suru in LA, this installation was done by Axis, and it's called Welcome to My Nightmare. Lovely. Her whole idea was that people are always so interested in their own dreams, they have no idea how interestingly bad other people's dreams can get, so she decided to create her own nightmares into art. One piece showcases an Irish coffin with an actual skeleton of a man in there holding a can of spray paint and a bottle of whiskey. And you're probably like, that's fine. No, there are also 2 huge live pythons just slithering all over the coffin. And no, it's not over yet. Within this glass enclosure is a half-naked model just there as eye candy touching the pythons because, she can. I don't even want to get into what other things she had displayed because I feel like that's bad enough. Actually fully okay not knowing what your other dreams and nightmares are, Axis. Really, okay, no need to see any more. Done. And finally, at number 1 are the Little Girls. Also on display at Suru is the work of Chinese photographer and painter Zhang Peng. The photo collection on display just makes you feel a type of way, honestly, they're just haunting. Peng manipulated the eyes in each of his child subjects to make them look more flawless, to kind of comment on westernized ideals of femininity that Asian media just emphasize. The subjects are real children, but the way the artist has manipulated them literally makes them look like creepy dolls with like sad ass eyes. One piece is of a little girl holding a sharp knife ready to cut her birthday cake, except the birthday cake has her dead goldfish all over it that she'd killed, and she has blood all over her dress, and you can imagine her eyes just big, dark, haunting. Another one is of a girl in a bathtub bathtub filled with blood. There are body parts floating over her in the tub, and what makes it worse are like the blood streaks that are streaming down the bathtub, and then the girl obviously right in the middle looking at you like I don't even know. Now the worst one for me in the collection was a tiny girl in a wedding dress. The girl literally looks 5 years old at best. She's tiny, she's crying, she's in a wedding dress, and she's heavily pregnant. I just can't get that eyes out of my head, like I really can't. Like I hope when the pictures flash up, like you guys know what I mean.
Starting off this countdown, we have the Stagecoach painting. So this painting has a very dark and twisted backstory, so no wonder it's cursed. So in 1994, a photographer named James Kidd took a bunch of photos of stagecoaches in Tombstone, Arizona. However, upon developing the photos, he realized he captured a ghost of a headless man. And then a painter thought it would be a good idea to recreate this photo as an oil painting. So she painted this headless ghost man, and the ghost attached itself to the painting. Like seriously, what did she expect? So when the painting was complete, it was hung at a business. But a couple of days later, the business demanded that she take it back. Apparently, the painting was found crooked every morning, despite them constantly fixing it. They also blamed the painting for paperwork going missing and appointments getting messed up. The painting was just bringing them bad luck. So the painter brought it back to her home, and she started experiencing bad luck. Her garage roof started leaking, but roofers couldn't find the source of the leak. And when the painting was moved, the leak stopped. That's what you get for painting a photo of a ghost.
Wow, what a creepy painting. Let's move on to number 9 with the Pyramid of Skulls. Before I go any further, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up because it really helps us out. So the Pyramid of Skulls is just as it sounds. It's a painting of a bunch of skulls on top of each other. It was completed by painter Paul Cézanne. Now here's where it gets creepy. As Paul started getting older, he became fascinated by death. So from 1898 up until his death, all he would paint are these creepy paintings filled with skulls. This particular piece apparently emphasizes the fact that you need to confront death and reflect on it. Not only that, but his genre of painting is called memento mori, which translates into remember that you have to die. So if that isn't creepy, then I don't know what is.
Moving on to number 8, we have the Raft of Medusa. The Raft of Medusa was created by Theodore Géricault back in 1819. The painting depicts the real-life shipwreck of the French naval frigate Méduse. On July 5th, 1816, 147 men set sail on this raft. Only 15 managed to survive. But those that did survive turned to cannibalism after being severely starved. Just knowing that backstory makes the painting way darker than it already is. Back to you, Brie.
Alright, and at number 7, we have the Japanese girl drawing. This is another painting with a very dark backstory. So legend goes that a Japanese student was found dead in her room. This was the last image that she had drawn before taking her own life. In fact, she scanned this image and posted it online for everyone to see. But legend goes if you stare into this girl's eyes too long, then she will get you to take your own life as well. Some who have stared at it for a while have claimed that the portrait turns evil. The girl gets an evil-looking smirk on her face and dark circles appear under her eyes. If that's what evil looks like, then I guess I'm evil because I look like that in the morning.
Making our way down the list of number 6, we have the Mona Lisa. Now I know what you're thinking. Lindsay, how is this painting scary? Well, it's not. But its backstory certainly is. So there's this famous urban legend surrounding the Mona Lisa. Apparently, a French artist took his life because he was driven mad by the mystery of the Mona Lisa's smile. French artist's name was Luc Mapereau. On June 23rd, 1852, he threw himself from the 4th floor of his Paris hotel. Later, a note was found in his room that read, and I quote, "For years, I have grappled desperately with Mona Lisa's smile. I prefer to die." Sadly, that's all we know about this case and Luke. It was featured in a 1999 Smithsonian article and in a book from 1966. It's a pretty creepy case, and now I will never be able to look at the Mona Lisa the same.
Coming in at number 5, we have the Weeping Children. The Weeping Children are a collection of paintings created by a man named Giovanni Bragolin. Every painting features a little boy or girl crying. Now it's said whoever owns these paintings will face tragedy. So in this case, all of Giovanni's paintings are cursed. In fact, a string of house fires were all thought to have been caused by this painting. All of the houses that caught on fire were completely destroyed except for the paintings that remained perfectly undamaged. Take the case of Roy and May Hall. This couple owned one of these paintings. Their house unexpectedly caught fire and they almost lost everything, except for the painting of a crying boy that wasn't even blackened by smoke.
Yeah, I've heard of those paintings before. It's super freaking creepy. Okay, and at number 4, we have Zdzisław Bakaski. Look, I know I said his name wrong. Okay, I know I butchered it. Just move on from it. Now, this dude has created a number of creepy looking paintings, but the scariest one is this one right here. It features this weird creature crawling with a bloody wrap on its head. Honestly, it really creeps me out. To make matters worse, apparently this painting is cursed, and if you see it 3 different times, then you'll die. Yeah, so we all just saw the image once, 2 more times, and bye-bye. Okay, I mean, there's no proof that this legend is real, but still, I never want to see that painting in my life ever again.
I agree, I never want to see that painting again. Okay, moving on to number 3, we have the collage of art balls. Here is another painting that can kill. So this painting is associated with a Japanese urban legend. Legend goes that if you look at this painting 5 times, then you will die. A little death note, but whatever. I mean, hey, at least it's 5 times and not 3 like the other painting Lindsay mentioned. Besides that, not a lot of people know much about this painting. It was painted in 2010, but we don't know by whom. And we don't know why it's cursed either. I mean, it's just a painting of a ball.
And at number 2, we have Watson and the Shark. This painting is a depiction of a real-life tragedy. It was created by John Singleton Copley in 1778. Basically, back in 1749 in Havana, Cuba, a visitor on the royal consort was the victim of a brutal shark attack. He lost his leg in the attack and was badly injured, but thankfully, he was rescued. This painting depicts just that, which is very dark.
And finally, in at number 1, we have Man Proposes, God Disposes. This painting was created by Edwin Landseer in 1864. It depicts Sir John Franklin's ill-fated expedition in 1845. This painting is how Edwin imagined their fate would be. But little did he know that he created an extremely cursed painting. So this painting is hung up in the exam hall at the Royal Holloway University of London. Rumor has it that in the 1970s, a student took his own life after staring at the painting while taking his exam. All he left behind was a note on his exam paper that read, "The polar bears made me do it."
Starting off this countdown, we have the Fairy Feller's Master Stroke. The Fairy Feller's Master Stroke is Richard Dad's most famous Baroque painting. It's quite beautiful at first glance with all the flowers and intricate details. But turns out that Richard painted this while incarcerated in a state criminal lunatic asylum. In 1843, he suffered a psychotic episode which ended in him brutally killing his father with a razor and 5-inch knife. He then proceeded to hide the body and flee to France. But while fleeing, he tried to kill a fellow coach passenger and was arrested and brought back to England. And then he was locked away after telling authorities he was instructed to kill his dad by the Egyptian god Osiris. Moving on at number 9, we have the Charnel House. This is a piece created by none other than Pablo Picasso. It was first exhibited in 1946 and it is a very abstract piece. Well, turns out that the piece actually depicts a Spanish family that had been killed in their own kitchen. Picasso saw footage of this in a black and white documentary and was left shocked, to say the least. If you look at this piece, the lack of color is intended to symbolize the feeling of witnessing such violence on film. The longer and closer you stare at this image, the more you can interpret it. You can see the kitchen counter with the dishes up above, while a number of bodies lay on the floor below. That's what makes this painting very unsettling. At first you're like, whoa, what is this that I'm looking at? And then you're given the gruesome backstory, and then all of a sudden the abstract shapes form images. In our 8th spot, we have the cross-country killer drawing. This next piece of artwork features a cloaked figure holding a set of scales, while a 2-headed dragon casually chills below it. I'll leave it up to you for interpretation. Now, this cartoonish piece of work was actually created by Glenn Edward Rogers, otherwise known as the cross-country killer or the Casanova killer. He's an American serial killer that was convicted of 2 murders but suspected of many more. In fact, he admitted to killing 70 people, but later he was like, nah, I'm just playing, I didn't kill that many people. So we really don't know his true kill count. Fun fact, if you want to buy this piece of work, you can. It's currently on sale for $200. Literally just because of who drew it. I don't know about you, but I do not want my home decorated by pieces made by serial killers. No thank you. Moving on, at number 7, we have Christina's World. This piece of art was created in 1948 by Andrew Wyeth and features a young girl laying on the grass staring at a big home in the distance. Now, there's nothing necessarily sad or dark about this painting, right? Well, wrong. This painting is of Christina Olsen, a neighbor of Andrew, who was sadly unable to walk. As a young girl, she developed a degenerative muscle condition, possibly polio, but it was never diagnosed. This left her unable to walk, but she refused to use a wheelchair. Instead, she would crawl everywhere. This painting reflects the struggles she encounters on a daily basis. For example, her being so far from her home might symbolize how disconnected she feels with her abled family. It also highlights how it would be hard for her to travel great distances, as she would have to drag her body across that field to get home. With all this in mind, it really changes how you see this painting. At least it did for me. Moving on, at number 6, we have Bernardo de Galvez, aka one of the most haunted paintings in the world. This is a portrait of Bernardo de Galvez, a very powerful Spanish military leader. In the early 1900s, the city of Galveston opened a hotel named after him, and in the hotel, they hung this massive portrait of him. Shortly after, spooky things began to happen, and people realized that Bernardo has attached himself to his portrait. A lot of guests have seen his ghost wandering the halls by his portrait. Others complained about feeling very unsettled while passing the painting. Others say that the area around the painting is always very cold. The creepiest thing is that if you try to take a photo of the portrait, it will end up coming out blurry or just completely dark. Your photos will continue to turn out blurry unless you ask Bernardo if it's okay to take a photo of him. Once you get his permission, then you can take a picture of the portrait and it should come out clear. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the approaching storm. This painting is quite unique due to the fact that the top of the canvas is actually carved out, giving it kind of a 3D look. The painting has been named the Small Pine and Barn with Approaching Storm painting. It's a very original title. Now, what's the big deal about this painting, you ask? Well, it was created by serial killer Jeremy Jones. Jeremy claimed to have taken the lives of 21 women in 5 different states over the course of 12 years. He was finally caught in 2004 after he killed his neighbor and set her home on fire. And this is another painting that you can purchase if you want art done by a gruesome killer in your home. If you do, it's yours for $625. Moving on to number 4, we have Frida Kahlo. Frida Kahlo was a Mexican painter most famous for her self-portraits featuring her iconic monobrow. But what many people don't know is that she had a very tragic life. At 6 years old, she contracted polio that affected her right leg. As she got older, she developed a permanent limp. Then as a teen, she was injured in a terrible bus accident, during which one of the bus's iron handrails impaled her through her pelvis. As a result, she was unable to have children. A number of her paintings highlight her tragedies, including the Broken Column painting. This painting depicts how she felt after that bus accident. It features Frida with a metal rod in place of her spine. Not only that, but you might notice that in a number of her paintings, she's surrounded by monkeys. Well, monkeys were her favorite animal, and in her paintings, they represent the children that she was never able to have. Now, how depressing is that? In our 3rd spot, we have Black Triptychs. Black Triptychs are a series of 3 paintings created by Francis Bacon between 1972 to 1974. They feature a series of blurry abstract men. These paintings were actually inspired by Bacon's lover's death. George Dyer was Bacon's muse and lover. Sadly, he took his own life and Bacon fell into a dark hole. These paintings show views from the moments before, during, and after Dyer's death. After his death, Bacon painted him obsessively, often showcasing how distraught he was by his death. So what you're looking at in this painting is literally a death scene, painted by a heartbroken and traumatized artist. In our 2nd spot, we have The Lovers. With a name like The Lovers, maybe you're expecting a cute, brightly colored painting featuring 2 happy people in love. Well, not even close, I'm sorry. This is a painting completed by Renee Magritte and features a couple kissing with white sheets over their faces. In fact, these paintings were inspired by her mother, who took her life when Renee was only 13. Her mother jumped into a river and drowned herself. Renee saw her get pulled out of the water and noticed that her mother's nightgown had slipped over her face, covering it. This traumatizing image of her dead mother inspired this piece of work. For years, she was haunted by this image of her mother. Now, how dark and depressing is that one? It just keeps getting worse and worse, guys. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the severed heads. And just like the painting's name suggests, it features 2 severed heads. Now, this piece was painted by artist Theodore Géricault, who is known for his dark and scary paintings. It features a woman's recently decapitated head next to a man's decaying head. Clearly, he's been dead for more time than her. Now, here's what makes this painting even more messed up. Theodore was so obsessed with death that apparently he kept real dismembered body parts and cadavers in his studio. So the heads we see in the painting were real heads he had in his studio that he drew. He obtained the male's head after it had been chopped off by a guillotine. How great is that?